Unfortunately, the unthinkable happened. I lost my save file for Breath of the Wild. I can't even begin to express how heartbroken I was when I realized all of those hours I spent exploring, foraging, cooking, fighting, building a home and a town, lost. What originally was meant to be only quickly checking out the Switch 2 version of Breath of the Wild turned into waking up at the Shrine of Resurrection for the second time. I had forgotten the feeling of awe that I can only describe as sublime. For nearly 10 years, I've been the strongest thing in this world. Calamity Ganon long defeated. Now, I'm forced to directly interact with the world. I can't instantly teleport to areas I'd like to see. 20 hours in, and I still can't access many of the areas that I'm eager to visit. And the places that I have been able to visit have taken time and effort to reach. I'm forced to slowly traverse the landscape, and it makes the world feel tactile and alive. This has given me a new perspective. Maybe I should say reminded me of an old perspective of the world. I appreciate the view from the top of a tower or mountain so much more after dying upwards of 6 times and exhausting most of my resources that I've spent the last 3 hours gathering to get there. Seeing red towers in the distance and having Hyrule Castle enveloped in calamity looming over my shoulder has reminded me of how extensive Hyrule truly is, and how small it makes me feel. At E3 2014, Aonuma discussed how the Legend of Zelda series has evolved and explained past limitations. Then he revealed what would become The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I clearly remember watching this as a child and thinking that this may be the best game I ever played in my entire life. I got chills when Aonuma pointed at the mountains in the distance and casually told us that we can go there, insinuating that no area would be inaccessible. This promise that the developers made during the reveal seemed too big. I mean, that is still the best video game trailer of all time. The world seemed massive and stunning. To put into perspective, at the time of this announcement, the newest iPhone was the iPhone 5. I had an iPhone 5C, and it randomly exploded one day while I was folding clothes. I could not grasp how this game would be possible, at least without the Wii U exploding. I definitely was prepared for disappointment. When the release date finally rolled around, after much delay, I had to practically stalk Nintendo Switch restocks to get my hands on it. Once I did have it, I quickly realized that the promise wasn't just kept, but also exceeded. I spent 2 days straight just unlocking all of the towers. I couldn't believe how diverse the different environments were. It felt like everywhere I went, there was something to discover. If magic does exist, then this is proof of that existence. I still cannot comprehend what all went into this. The flora, fauna, weather patterns, physics engine, sound design, narrative elements, and environmental storytelling. I could talk for hours on any one element. They all ultimately work together to create a very real and beautifully broken world. This beautifully broken world is enchanting. Re-experiencing this world as an adult has given me a newfound appreciation for aspects I overlooked when I was younger. Parts of the environment that I rushed past or failed to grasp now stand out to me as well-crafted environmental world building that tells its own story. Okay, so far, my favorite example of this is the path leading up to Fort Hatino. Hatino? Hatino. Sorry if that's wrong. As you ride up, you pass through the corpses of guardians that were clearly heading in the same direction 100 years ago. All of the trees are even splintered trunks, showing just how violent this attack was. They broke everything in their path. As you reach the fort, the guardians are scaling the barrier to lay siege where some of the last Hylians hid out. It's so eerie, you can only imagine how fearful it must have been for them. Without the use of a single dialogue box or cutscene, Princess Zelda's love for her people is expressed so clearly through the environment. When her people were mere seconds from such a violent attack, she gave everything she had to stop Calamity Ganon. The corrosion and the moss covering the scene reminds us just how long she's been fighting this battle, and how close the world came to full collapse. The second you pass through the barrier, there is no sign of destruction or guardians. Everything is lush and peaceful, a sign of the small victory on such a devastating day. I rode past this area dozens of times when the game launched. I was so excited to explore that I didn't even give this scene a second thought. My view of the Blood Moon has also completely changed. I used to find it annoying, but I understood that the game needs to replenish enemies so that the environment doesn't become stale. That obviously is a big technical reason for the mechanic's existence, but now I see that it also serves a narrative purpose. The people of Hyrule are not weak. They've survived in this world. They even travel, much like Link. Small-time heroes could have risen up and killed all of the monsters at least once over the last 100 years. The Blood Moon highlights how there is no solution for Hyrule without the source being addressed. This places even more hope on Link. Everything in the world is intentional. There are aspects that one person may get and appreciate that others haven't even considered. I swear, every time I watch someone play this game, something happens that makes me go, huh, I didn't know you could do that, or I never noticed that. That's so unique from a game. This may sound like an oxymoron, but one thing that has really stood out to me is how time consuming everything is. But I don't feel like it's wasting my time. Moving from one location to another takes time. Climbing tall cliffs or structures is not quick. Even walking across the bridge to Zora's domain takes longer than I remembered. The time and effort that you are putting in for these tasks adds a layer of realism to the adventure. It also makes what you discover all that more rewarding. I feel like many modern games want to provide the players with constant stimulus to keep engagement. Breath of the Wild forces you to slow down and wait for the more stimulating moments. It takes a very well-crafted world to keep a player immersed walking through an open field or scaling the side of a mountain for several minutes. Once you reach the other side of the bridge and enter Zora's domain, you feel like you're in a completely different world. It feels like you're in a futuristic palace. The music for Zora's domain is my favorite music in the game. It's actually one of my go-to songs to use for videos. Zora's domain is also the first place where many players encounter a Goron. I love seeing the different races interact with one another. This fixes the feeling of separation and isolation I run into in other games. To see the world's inhabitants also traveling and exploring like you seems natural. Moments like seeing a Goron for the first time or catching a glimpse of a dragon makes the world feel so much bigger. It makes you realize that after dozens of hours playing, you've barely scratched the surface of what there is to discover. It makes you all that more eager to find your next discovery. This can also go for gameplay mechanics. There is so much in this world to interact with and use to your advantage. Sometimes you feel like a genius. Other times it's just hilarious. Early game, I threw a Stokoblin head at a Lizalfos, and it actually hurt it. I was laughing so hard I almost died. Still, to this day, one of my absolute favorite YouTube videos is Donkey playing Breath of the Wild, Specifically, the part where he gets the moblin to hit the cuckoo and the cuckoos annihilate the moblin. Oh my gosh. While making this video, I got asked an important question. What made me want to do a Zelda video? Which, the obvious answer is, my name is Great Fairy Carrie. I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you understand that it's a reference to the Great Fairies in the Legend of Zelda series that aid Link along in his journey. I will also add that I had this username prior to Breath of the Wild, so these Great Fairies aren't exactly what I had in mind when choosing it. The serious answer to that question, though, is probably a little boring. I want to become a game developer. I'm reaching the end of my degree, and I want to revisit some of the games that gave me this passion to help me understand the feeling I want to give players in the games that I create. We're in an age where creative pursuits are competing with artificial intelligence. That can feel intimidating for hopeful game developers, authors, animators. But I believe that the ability for art to evoke a genuine, deep emotion is always going to be valuable, regardless of what may be an easier or more cost-effective approach. Breath of the Wild feels very human. It feels like love and passion and time went into it. The range of emotions that it takes a player through is something worth studying. I'm sure that if you've played long enough, you've felt eager, happy, sad, frustrated, laughed, maybe even cried. The progression that the Legend of Zelda series has seen is unbelievable. The fact that Shigeru Miyamoto went from making the first Zelda to producing Breath of the Wild is hard to grasp. The rapid evolution of technology during his career has been massive, especially for him to evolve alongside it. Take a second and guess, how many copies of the original Legend of Zelda game do you think can fit into one singular gigabyte? Do you have a guess? If it's anything other than 8,192 copies, you'd be wrong. Like I said, the advancements during his career have been unbelievable. It would be like if Charlie Chaplin directed Cars 3 and was able to make it a masterpiece that turned the industry on its head. Breath of the Wild won Game of the Year during an incredibly stacked year, and the game holds up incredibly well. I think this game will be timeless. As I'm working on this video, I'm actively fighting the urge to open up the game and continue my playthrough. Originally, I thought that losing my save file was tragic. Now, I'm actually really happy I did. If you've considered starting over, I think it's worth it. Be vulnerable and weak re-exploring Hyrule. Forget that you can't immediately glide. Forget that you can't immediately glide and laugh at the game over screen. And experience leaping off of the Great Plateau with a stick and no fast travel points. I think that if you do, you'll agree with me that Breath of the Wild is still magical. Let me know if you're interested in seeing any more of my time replaying Breath of the Wild. I hope you do, because I would love an excuse to sink as many hours as possible in. Let me know down below what you love most about Breath of the Wild. If you made it this far, I appreciate you so much. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video, and have a great day.